Hey guys, it's Pastor Brian here. I'm excited as we start the next session of our Explore the Bible. For the summer, we're going to be looking through Joshua, Judges, and Ruth, and I'm really excited to dive in as a church with this together. And so I just wanted to kind of make a little video, talk about the lesson, kind of talk about the overview of the book of Joshua as we start there. And so just some things to highlight as we get into Joshua. We are coming out of the Pentateuch, so Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. We're going into what is now called the historical books. Those runs from Joshua to Esther, spans about 1,000 years of Israel's history. And so it's a very pivotal book in the Old Testament. As we shift from the Pentateuch to the historical books, we're shifting from the leadership of Moses over the nation of Israel to now Joshua leading the people of the nation of Israel. And that's going to be a big talking point for this week's lesson. Kind of an overview of the book of Joshua. Chapters 1 to 12 is about the conquest of the land, the promised land. Chapters 13 to 24 is about the division of the land among the people. And so Moses has just died. In Exodus, he led the people out of slavery in Egypt, led them. The goal was the promised land. The promise was the promised land. But because of sin by Moses and the people, they have to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And so we're at the end of that time. At the end of Deuteronomy, we see the death of Moses, and we see Joshua mentioned in Deuteronomy as kind of a helper at that point. But now here at the beginning of Joshua, we see Joshua stepping into that role to lead the people of Israel. He is now the new Moses. We'll see at the beginning chapters of this book, he's going to call the people to obey the law, just like Moses did. We're going to see that he's going to send spies into the land, just like Moses did back in Numbers 13 to 14. A lot of parallels between Joshua and Moses. And so he is now leading the Israelites into the promised land that was promised to Abraham and to Moses. But one important thing to note here, the human leader has changed, but the God of the Old Testament has not. This is still Yahweh God, and this is still the promise-keeping God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses. And so he remains the same, and his promises remain the same. And as we walk through this exciting book of Joshua, we're going to see one of the big promises of the Old Testament fulfilled, and that is the Israelites entering the promised land. The name Joshua means Yahweh is salvation. He is one of the clearest types of Christ in the Old Testament. A lot of what he does, including his name himself, points to Jesus Christ. Joshua points forward to Christ, who leads our conquest through this passing earthly kingdom into eternal life. That's what Christ is doing for us now. Christ also leads our conquest against sin and death. Joshua is going to lead the conquest of the land of Canaan for the Israelites. And in a lot of the ways he does that, he's going to point us forward to Christ, which is going to be an important thing for us to see throughout this book. Joshua foreshadows what God is doing today as he calls his people together under his rule. God is calling people into his kingdom today, pointing forward to the eternal kingdom to come. And Joshua here is leading the Israelites into their new kingdom, the promised land, through conquest of the land of Canaan. A couple important things we're going to see. We're going to see that God is faithful. We're going to see that God works through us. And we're going to see that obedience is important. Right off the bat, as we get into the lesson one for this session in chapter 1 of Joshua, there's going to be a command that appears 3 times, and it is to be strong and courageous. That is to Joshua, that is to the Israelites, and that is to us today. Joshua is continually reminded that he can do this because God will be with him. If you think back throughout the Pentateuch, particularly the book of Genesis and Exodus, we see God over and over and over again telling Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses. One of the most often used promises is God telling these people, I will be with you. And we see that here in Joshua. In verse 5, we see no one will be able to stand against you. That's a promise. In verse 17, we see certainly the Lord your God will be with you. And so Joshua, as he begins to lead these people, has promises that he can cling to. And because he has these promises he can cling to, he can be strong and courageous. And it's the same for us today. They need to be strong and courageous in their obedience and live by faith in God's promises to enter the promised land. And they can be strong and courageous because God is trustworthy. So that's kind of the big takeaway for me this week as I've been looking at the lesson is that God is trustworthy. And because of that, we can be strong and courageous in our obedience. So I look forward to this study. Thank you guys for all that you do. I'll be praying for you this Sunday as we kick this study off in Joshua chapter 1. Just a quick reminder, if you look at page 15 of your leader guide, there's a QR code at the bottom that takes you to a website, and the website's also listed for a lot of other resources as well that can help each week throughout the lessons that Lifeway provides, some podcasts and different things that are also very helpful. But don't hesitate to reach out if you ever need anything or have any questions. Thank you guys so much for all that you do. I love you, and I'm praying for you this Sunday.